Welcome to episode 193 of Auto Off Topic, and welcome back, Brad. How
Hello,
are you?
Andrew. I'm wonderful. How are you?
Cool. So, a quick little thing before we get into the episode tonight. We know the world is a pretty crazy place, and this podcast is an escape for people to get away from that. We've said this before. There are plenty of places to discuss the world, and politics. This isn't one of them, so we'll keep this to a minimum. Auto Off Topic supports inclusion and diversity in the automotive world and beyond. We like all sorts of cars, and we want all sorts of car enthusiasts to feel welcome in the automotive world. We aren't the two guys that need to be commenting on society and politics. And while we talk a lot, we are listening, and we promise to do our best to support the community in positive ways.
All good stuff.
Yes.
All positive things for almost everything,
right.
Unless we don't like your car.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if you
Judge
want
not,
us to rip...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Judge not on content or character. Judge only on the wheels on your car.
Yeah. If you want us to roast your car, we could certainly do that. I know there's some groups on like that on Facebook that people are like, roast my car.
And we can definitely take it if we dish it out, so no problems.
Oh, yes.
I will make fun of your car with the full realization that I drive a fleet of Dodge Colts.
Yeah. I still am hesitant to respect all builds because sometimes just because you should doesn't mean, or just because you can doesn't mean you should. So,
yeah.
But the majority of we support, everything. So, and that being said, we're going to get to what we know, which is cars.
We're going to get to what we're good at, or at least better at, which is cars.
Right. Project car updates. I actually have a couple.
You do?
I do, because there was an event that I wanted to go to, and I needed to take the Galant for specific reasons that I will explain later. But it hadn't been out in over a year. And I think the last time the car was out, my dad drove it to Radwood in Boston. And that was kind of after I had fixed the throttle issue that I was having last year.
Right.
So now the throttle was being fine.
Right. The throttle was hanging up, if I remember correctly. Correct.
It was hanging up. Yeah.
Yeah.
It still has a weird kind of lazy fault idle, but I feel like that's just the way those cars are. There's not much you can do. Everything's been rebuilt, adjusted, replaced. It's just the way they are. And as you come to a stop, it kind of hangs, and then you push the clutch in, you're sitting on a light, it drops down to idle, like kind of rapidly, but doesn't stall. So,
well, you also need to put yourself in the time of the car. It's a 1991 or 92, 91, 92. What year's
91.
91. So in 1991, the world of like every car being fuel injected was only like 6 years old. So you're still talking about an early system at the time. You know, sure, fuel injection came out long before that, but it wasn't a mainstream in every car on the road until the, late 80s, really. And it wasn't really common until the mid 80s. So your car at the time, we're talking like 6 years into the fuel injection swap over. So we're not talking about a brand new 2020 system that's, got 40 years of development behind it.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the Talon does still idle better, but whatever. It idles well enough for a car that I don't drive every day to not really annoy me. The big thing is that when you are driving down the road and you let off the gas, it actually coasts instead of just continues to give throttle.
Yeah, that was annoying.
Yeah. So I wanted to do an oil change to it. I wanted also just to inspect underneath it. I like to do that at least once a year, or every time I'm changing oil, which is on that car once a year. And I found when I did the rear brakes, I must have left the rear caliper line a little loose, like 2.5 turns loose. It's got those old school calipers that are super annoying, where instead of having a banjo bolt, it threads into the caliper. I hate that kind so much.
Yep.
Because you basically have to like spin the caliper onto the line, or somehow do it in a way that the line doesn't get tangled and kinked. It's like really annoying. It's like probably one of the things I like least about early Mitsubishis is that setup.
Yeah, which is common for a lot of foreign cars in that era.
Yeah. So that was an easy fix. Glad I found it. Kind of explains why the pedal was a little mushy. I thought it needed a brake fluid flush, but it probably still does, but it was mostly because it had a little leak. The what else did I have to do? Obviously, oil change. Oh, it had a small exhaust leak, and the cat gaskets. I posted this to my Instagram. Looked like they were pretty toasty, and they're pretty easy change, and you can get them. They're just because it's an aftermarket exhaust. It's just a 2.5-inch flat gasket, easy to get. Pep Boys carries the nice vibrant ones now, so you can just. I didn't even have to go to the counter. They just had them on the shelf, which is cool. You just walk in, grab them, buy them, leave. Swapped them out. Only had one bolt break because they're fairly new bolts.
Which for a New England car is a success story.
Right. Sort of worked. I think it solved a small leak, but really it kind of narrowed it down to the leak is definitely coming from the flex pipe.
Which is also common.
Yeah, it's kind of low in the front. I know it's hit a couple times on like dirt roads. And it's also, from, I put it in 2012. So yeah, it just kind of wore out. It happens. Luckily, flex sections, I just have to measure it to see if it's like 6 inches long, 8 inches long.
So it's probably 8 or 10 if I remember. Oh, it's aftermarket though, so it might be different.
Yeah, it's aftermarket. So it might be 6, might be 8. Again, Vibrant makes that piece. It's the exact size. It'll be 2.5 because I know that's what the exhaust is. I can just cut it out and I'll weld it back in because I have enough welding skills that I can at least weld an exhaust pipe.
Welding exhaust is one of the hardest things to do as an amateur welder, though, because
I'm not going to do it in the car.
Okay, so there's 2 problems. One, the pipe is so thin that it becomes really easy just to blow through it, and 2, getting the top is very difficult. But if you're taking it out of the car, then that's
it'll come out easily enough because I know the back part where it attaches the cat will come apart. Right. And I know I've already done the gasket once up by the O2 housing, so that should come off. I'll put it on the bench, cut it out. My plan is to just do the very slow, like tack a place, move, tack a place, not to overheat it, and I'll just go around.
Yep.
And just take my time with it. If it comes out a little ugly, okay, as long as it doesn't leak.
So I had a professional exhaust shop put the muffler on the Sapporo, and it looks like I did it with my eyes closed. So I don't think that it needing to be pretty is something we have to worry about too much when it comes to exhaust, unless you're building an absolute show car.
Yeah, but it shouldn't be too bad. But I do want to do it pretty quickly, so don't forget about it.
Right.
So, but anyway, the event, I'll cover that real quick. Or do you want to go into your stuff first?
No, keep going, gallant, man.
So it was for an event called Rally in the East, which was a small driving rally. They already did one in May that I didn't know about, but I knew some people that were involved. So I got invited to the second one that was this past Sunday, and it's a lot of guys from the tri-state area. So we ended up meeting in Western Connecticut and exploring. It was about a 2-hour drive. It was a night. It was like the perfect amount of driving because they knew a lot of people came up from like Manhattan. Some people came from the Boston area like me. So we kind of met in a central location, drove for 2 hours, didn't really congregate in a close group, just in cars. If we're outside of the cars, we were spread apart. Everybody brought their own food and drink. And it was cool. They did mostly actually dirt roads, believe it or not.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So yeah, all the cars that I have pictures of the Lancia, the 037, that was mostly, they did all dirt roads in that car.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And the Lancia Beta Monte Carlo, yeah, all dirt roads.
Excellent.
It was mostly all Lancias. There was a Ford Escort Cosworth. The I forget what generation Cosworth that is, but it's the very famous the Michelin livery
I think that'd
from
be
the
considered a Mark IV Escort, maybe.
yeah, I think it's just Escort Cosworth.
Yeah, RS
So
2000.
yeah, so the car that Block rolled and burned
Yes. Yeah.
a couple years ago. Yeah, same car.
So was this car an actual rally car, or was it a street car with a livery on it?
It is an actual rally car. I'll send you the Instagram post with a friend of our friend wrote up a whole history on it because it was fixed at a local performance shop, and they actually asked this guy for help in fabricating a proper radiator to go in the car, I guess.
Okay.
And it was a car that was on like Super Ford magazine or something in
Okay.
Europe, in England in the 90s. It was like a yellow like cover car. It was a rally car that was turned into a street car, and now it's been brought back to its rally car spec.
Okay.
So yeah, it's a pretty serious car. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, those cars are still one of my all-time favorites. That is just kind of outside of the realm of like WRC enthusiasts from the Group A era. Is kind of forgotten about.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, that car was there. Oh, there's an Alpine A110 and then my Galant, which were the only non-Lancia cars. Mostly a lot of Deltas, so like regular Deltas, and then a couple Evos and a couple Martini cars, which I guess is a special edition of that car to commemorate all their rally championships.
Was the black one a Massachusetts car?
No, it had New York plates. He's from New York area.
Because there's a black one that looks like a very similar spec to that one that resides in Marblehead. So I didn't know if it's the same car or not.
Yeah, there was a nice looking white one that I liked. Very basic, but he had comp motive wheels on it. You can definitely see the difference between their Evo version and their regular version, but the regular version is still pretty cool looking.
Yeah, it's very cool. And with the right set of wheels and the right stance in the car, it can be made to look pretty aggressive and pretty awesome. You don't need to spend the extra for the Evo version if you're just going for the look.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it was very, very cool, very low key. The whole point is that it's for homologation cars. They want to keep it small. Not really, the public is not really invited. You kind of have to know people to get invited. It will be covered in Petrolicious at some point. And there's guys filming and shooting a lot of pictures. So there'll be a little video on it at some point that when I get the email about it, I will share it to our page.
So that's called Rally in the East.
Yep. There is an Instagram page you can look at. Yeah.
Is there a program behind that putting it on, or is Rally in the East the program?
As far as I know, it is the program, and it's just a small group of friends that started it.
Excellent. Because I know I've seen pictures and video and footage from the first event, the one that our friend went to, and he had his WRX imported like '94 WRX rally car, the 555 livery, and his Pajero Evo, along with all the other Lancias and Lancias, whoever wants to pronounce it that way. So
yeah.
It's very cool. I was a little bit jealous that I moved away from New England to come out here to the cool car stuff, and all of a sudden now the cool car stuff is in New England. Maybe a little tinge of jealousy.
So actually, that reminded me. Speaking about that Cosworth being in a magazine, I almost forgot. This is huge news.
Yeah.
So a friend of our Al has it's a 78 RS 2000.
I think
Escort.
It's a 78. Yeah. Mark II Escort.
Mark II Escort. It's got the flares. It's all white. It's kind of stripped out tarmac style car. It's got the Pinto motor with a fuel injection conversion, the Gen V.
Yeah, it's got Gen V
carbs.
Gen V throttle bodies.
Yeah,
they look like carbs.
Yep, it's very, very cool. Last November, he wanted me to shoot some pictures of it because he knew that Retro Ford magazine in Europe, in England. Wanted to do a little story on it. I was like, sure, I'll shoot some pictures of it for you because you're a friend of mine. I guess the way it works, that magazine, if they want your car to be in the magazine, they have the owner get the photographer, and I assume they'd probably pay them, but is a friend of a friend deal. Friend deal. There was breakfast involved.
Yeah.
It was cool for me to shoot it anyways. So
Paid,
anyway,
paid in food and coffee.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, we this is when we could go out for breakfast. Anyway,
Yeah.
we sent off all the pictures, and we thought it would just be like a couple page spread. He gets the preview photo of it. Car's on the cover of the. So if you go to Retro Ford magazine for July 2020, the white Escort that's on the cover is our friend Al's car, and I shot that picture, and I shot every picture that's in the magazine of that car, and they put it like in a bunch of places in the magazine.
Yeah. So congratulations, because
Thank you.
is that your first published magazine shots?
Well, yeah, I believe so, and definitely my first cover.
Yeah, it's like your first like international magazine at least. And not only did you get your first international magazine, but you wound up with the cover shot, which is pretty good.
And then even on the inside, like I took kind of like, I thought it was like this kind of neat, but maybe a throwaway photo. I was standing under, there's actually this weird office building near my house where we shot it. And it was kind of like this overhang. And the way I shot it, the car is lit, and the overhang is providing this kind of like L-shaped blackout area. They actually took that and he used it for like the magazine information page, the page in a magazine where it has like all the stuff about the publisher.
Super cool.
And yeah. So like all that part is black, and then the car is lit up in the left corner, and it's just a whole bunch of places in the car. The big full page spreads. It's super cool. I got to get a couple more copies.
Yeah, that's super awesome. I don't know. Is it distributed in this country? I think it used to be. I don't know if it still is or not.
Yeah, maybe. But I mean, I looked on their website. I can buy the single copies.
Okay.
It might have been at a Barnes & Noble or Barnes & Noble, but I don't know where they're open right now. The one near me is not open currently.
Well, I think it was the same distributor that used to distribute Retro Cars magazine.
Yeah, and I know you can get a digital version by subscribing to it on Amazon.
Okay. That's not
what
I want.
Yeah, I want the paper one so I
can
absolutely frame it and hang it up.
It's super cool, and definitely congratulations goes to you on that, because I mean, congratulations to Al too, because his car is awesome. But I mean, that's an honor to be on the cover of the magazine of a major like international magazine. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, so I will take some shots of it. I'll throw it on our Instagram. I was kind of waiting because I didn't want it to get buried because we were doing some other stuff.
Right.
We wanted to have questions and stuff. So yeah, that was super cool. I'll probably throw it up when this episode drops. But what have you been up to?
No, nothing. Just sitting around, being bored.
Just bought a house, guys.
Yeah, well, not to brag or anything, but yeah, no, we did actually. Throwing down some actual like permanent roots here in Arizona. So we just closed on a house about a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, week and a half ago.
More importantly, you have a garage.
Yeah, what I meant to say was I closed on a garage.
Right.
So at the moment, we bought a house with a 2-car garage, which is huge for me because, as many of you know, I've never actually had my own garage. Real estate in New England is expensive when property is large enough to have a garage. And when I bought my first house, I certainly couldn't swing a place at the garage, unfortunately. So I have rented garage space for the past, I don't know, decade and a half. And it's quite expensive if you live in the Boston area. You know what I'm talking about. A simple garage spot you would think would have amenities and you could live in it by the time you're done paying for it sometimes. So I've always rented garages. Never really been able to throw down roots in my own garage and have my own space to call my own and decorate myself and make what I want. So I'm super excited about that. The house has a 2-car. It's a little undersized because it used to be a carport. It was enclosed into a garage, but it's definitely big enough for 2 cars
It's
as
bigger
well.
than my quote unquote 2-car garage.
Yeah, say if your garage is like a car and 3/4, but you can squeeze 2 cars in it.
Mm-hmm.
This car is like a car and 7/8, but you can put 2 cars in it. Like it's not quite a full 2-car garage.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, it's big enough to put 2 cars in it and has some tools in there. And the most important thing is the property has enough space and the town has the right variances allowed where it is to install a second detached building in the back to eventually put more cars and more storage. So
Would that be
exciting.
like a pole barn out there?
I've been looking
Just
at
a metal
metal.
building?
I've been looking at metal buildings. A
Yeah.
concrete slab and a metal building. You can do it fairly inexpensive. I don't want to say it's cheap, but it's less than a like regular construction wooden framed building. So
Yeah, it doesn't take away from the value of the house either if you've got a quote unquote workshop space, because people are into that if you ever wanted to sell the house.
yeah, and the metal buildings nowadays they don't look like metal buildings. It's not like a corrugated metal building that
Yeah,
just
it's not a
looks
shack.
out of place. Yeah, it actually looks like a finished building, and you can get them in all kinds of colors to match your house. And I'm not worried about the looks of it, and actually, I think it will add to the property value. To be honest with you, because it's by the time if it gets done the way that it's envisioned in our brain to get it done, then it'll be nice, and it will add value versus take it away. Plus, it will give me storage for my cars that doesn't cost me rent. So
Right.
that's the important part. I'm tired of paying hundreds and hundreds of dollars a month in garage rent just to keep cars because weather, you know. And out here in Phoenix, you need to keep them covered or else the sun will just destroy them. So still got to keep them covered just for different reasons, but it'll be nice to have my own space. So yeah, I've been real busy. Haven't done a lot of car projects because we've been moving. We've been doing other things, building grills and fixing lawnmowers and all kinds of tinkering projects, just not with cars, other things.
Did move your truck to the house though, didn't you?
We did move the truck to the house. Yeah, actually, Naomi's son Jordan out here, not a different Jordan than you guys are used to, um, towed it from where it was temporarily stored to the house now. So it's now sitting on the side of the house. The Eclipse is in the garage, and half of the garage right now is full of like moving stuff. We moved a bunch of stuff in there, and it's currently sitting in the garage. We go through it and organize stuff. So once that's all done, the garage will be for cars, obviously, not for piles
Mm-hmm.
of stuff. But we're getting there. So yeah, the only mechanical stuff I've been doing so far is, like I said, we picked up a used lawnmower, so I've been fixing that. And we picked up a brand new grill, and I dropped it off the back of my car, so I had to fix that too.
Hmm.
So life is interesting, but things are changing for the better, and I'm pretty stoked. So with my own garage on my own property, there should be, once we're all settled, every week project updates.
Mm.
That'll be the plan.
Yeah, I got you a housewarming gift to help with project car updates.
Yeah, I was pretty stoked on that. I was actually very excited about that, and when I opened it up, I was even more happy about it because they're pretty awesome.
Yeah, I got you some grip mats. This
Yep.
is an unpaid promotion for these because honestly, when I first saw them, I was like, I don't know if you need those. But then I got a small one for our friend Jordan here for I think it was his birthday or something, Christmas maybe, because we're always in his garage and like they like to put stuff on top of the engine or in the engine bay when we're working on cars, and you always like I don't know, you're just like, where did that wrench go? Because you can't see it or something.
Yep.
And basically, these are like silicone rubber orange trays,
Yep.
non-marring, non-metallic, and they'll just sit and they like no skid. They like won't slide off things.
Yeah, they're sticky
And
without being sticky.
yeah, it's weird. And you can just put, whatever tools you're using in there, and you just look for the orange tray, and that's where your tools are.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm pretty stoked. It's like a three pad set. So there's like 3 different sizes depending on the size of the project you're working on. So yeah, I'm pretty excited about that. So
Yeah, I got my dad one for his birthday too, and I got one I got one for myself, so
Yeah.
they're pretty cool.
They're handy dandy things. I have now like the magnet trays to put like all the hardware and bolts in, and these to keep the tools in, and I'll never lose a part again, right?
Yeah.
And the funny thing is that when you open the package up, the joke is everybody loses their 10 millimeter, and Grip Mat actually supplied a new 3/8 drive 10 millimeter branded Grip Mat on the side, so it's kind of the joke when you get them. But yeah, I'm stoked on it. Okay, I'm opening up interviews for a new podcast host because apparently Andrew has died.
Oh my goodness. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, right there.
I just had soda go up my nose.
Yeah. We're gonna edit this part out, or should I throw down the official announcement for interviewing for new podcast host?
Oh, I'll probably keep it in for now.
Yeah. Jesus.
Oh my god.
Yeah, that was good.
I have a pre-made DarkNStormy in a can.
Okay.
And yeah, it just went up my nose, and that ginger beer. Oh boy, that's a real strong ginger.
Burns good.
Yeah. I am literally tears running down my face right now.
Yeah, me too. Laughing at you. Now that I know you're alive.
Oh,
Wow.
classic.
Nothing but the best professionalism here.
That's
What pre-made DarkNStormies do you have?
It's Gosling's.
Oh, okay.
And it's the official rum cocktail of the Boston Red Sox.
That's a very specific thing.
Yes, and it's like in Green Monster Green or Fenway Green, the can.
Excellent. I'm actually also not drinking a beer. I'm drinking a blood orange cider. So we're both on the alternative alcohol beverages tonight.
All right, I'll try to carry on here.
Yeah. Press on regardless.
So speaking of rallying again, digital rallying, I've been working on my kitchen, hustling to get that done. I had a bunch of holdups because of COVID. All that stuff got caught up. Electrical, plumbing. We kind of briefly talked about it. Nobody really cares about my kitchen, but my point is that I've been working on that instead of playing Dirt Rally that we've been doing pretty regularly. I might have even missed an event over the weekend. I don't remember because it goes live every 3 days. It changes.
Yeah, well, I was doing our events, and I was doing Jordan's events, and I was doing the DWA events. And I've totally forgotten about all of them because I've been doing the moving thing.
Yeah, and I think I've been talking to Dan Downey. I think he's paper on there. I think he's been just continually doing them and kicking everybody's butt. So
I was actually talking to our listener, Albino 0909.
Oh yes, he's also really, really good at them.
Yeah, and he uses a controller.
Well, damn. Okay.
Yeah. Yep. So that's a thing. So here I was. I thought I was like one of the higher ranking drivers that was not using a steering wheel until he who was dominating a couple of the events was like, he saw my post about it and he's like, "Oh, I'm glad I'm not the only one not with a wheel setup." And I was like, "Wait, what do you mean you don't have a wheel setup?" So he's really fast on that controller. It surprises the crap out of me. I don't know.
Yeah, and then so speaking of sim racing and stuff like that, and completely opposite, I got really addicted, and a bunch of us got to Snow Runner.
Okay.
Which is literally the complete opposite of Dirt Rally. It's so slow.
It's slow and methodical versus manic and ridiculous.
Yeah, it is. It is a sandbox truck game. Basically, you're just playing with trucks, and you're moving truckloads of goods around to complete missions, and driving through like mud and off-roading, and it's like big diesel trucks, and I don't know. It's just I find it very entertaining. I don't know why.
People seem to think it's like a soothing, like it's relaxing to a point.
Yeah, you know what? I kind of, because I'm not doing a lot of driving and commuting, I'll put on a podcast and then play the game because you don't really need all the sound effects from the game. Like you can just hear them enough because it's just a truck engine.
Right. It's very droney.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't pulled the trigger on that game yet, just because I haven't had time to even play the games that we were playing before. So it's not in my in my plans anytime soon. So I'll live through you guys posting up pictures and videos and whatnot of it, and pretend I did it myself.
Yep. That's the other. It has like a cool aesthetic. Like it's a really pretty game, and
Yeah,
all the trucks are kind of vintage. And like,
they're like pseudo licensed trucks.
no, they're all officially licensed.
Are they officially licensed? Okay.
Well, yeah, they're all like they're internationals, Paystars, white trucks, GMCs. There'll be Chevys,
I know I saw you
Fords.
driving an International Scout at one point.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool.
Nope, they're all licensed. That's pretty cool. You know what it feels like right now is like somebody rubbed a ginger snap in my face.
You need to pause the whole podcast and come back in like a half hour. You're gonna be okay.
I'll be all right.
All right.
We've got some listener questions, so you want to start with the Facebook ones, or
I could definitely do that.
you have the Instagram queued up?
I
can
have
queue it up.
Facebook queued up right in front of me.
All right,
It's
let's start with those.
it's been some time since we've done some listener questions, so I felt it was be a good idea just to touch base again and talk to some people we haven't talked to in a while. So the first Facebook question we have is from Steve Booten. With NEFR and Climb to the Clouds being postponed or canceled for 2020, what do you plan to do to fulfill your motorsports needs? IMSA will be coming to Lime Rock Park in October, and STPR is still scheduled for September. At the moment, those two events are still scheduled. Let's hope that things stay in the path that they're staying on and we can have those events. I don't know what your plans are out there, Andrew, but I don't really have anything planned here as far as motorsports events this year.
If Lime Rock, so the current date I saw is October 31st, which I really don't, I'm really not into Halloween. So I'd definitely be more into that. If it's during that time period, it will be during fall out here. It should be pretty cool to be at Lime Rock in the fall. I've never seen it with fall colors. It's always in the middle of July. It's always 90 degrees and 70% humidity, which I don't hate, but it's like
It's a
it
hot
would be a
one.
different experience. Yeah. It would be more like going to Petit Le Mans, which is in October typically in Road Atlanta. So that kind of throws you off a bit with all the weird schedule changes. But I would definitely be into that, and STPR we'll see about like how that turns out, because I'd
The,
be
the,
interested in that too.
the funny irony in all of this is that I had planned on doing a bunch of motorsports stuff this year.
Right.
I'd planned on going to almost all of the ALMS races because they were all within range of going to them. I was going to go to Lime Rock. I was going to go to Detroit. I was going to go to, yeah, Laguna Seca. I was going to go to all not all the events, but a good number of the events. And I was going to come back for the rally, and I was going to go to the historics at Laguna Seca, and there's all kinds of stuff I had planned this year and had all planned out. And now, of all the years, it's the year that I had planned it all to make it happen. Like, we even so far as had a trip planned to Detroit to go on the same weekend as the event to see the races and to see Detroit. And just everything just kind of, obviously with the world going the way it went, all kind of became a little behind us now. So I'm not going to any of those events. So the irony is I'm not going to any car events this year, I don't think. Not by design. It's just now that we've bought the house and I don't have time to plan anything, I don't foresee me going to anything, even if it does come up in the near future. I'm not about to fly on a plane to go anywhere right now.
No, I won't do anything that's not driving distance right now.
And there's nowhere that's scheduled anything happening for me to drive to. So
They haven't come up with a new date for Laguna Seca.
no, not to my knowledge.
Hmm.
So, but anyway, it's okay because I'll save the money and I'll spend the money on project cars and getting a couple of cars from Mass to out here. So, is what it is. It stinks, but
Uh-huh.
yeah, those are my plans. In fact, speaking of events, the Mistlewood Concours in Beverly, the big event that we go to every year, just announced
Yep.
yesterday that they're not running it this year now.
I did
So
see that, yeah.
yeah, they're going to do a virtual event. We're going to have pictures of all of the vehicles that were entered in the concourse are going to be on the virtual event, but no actual concours event. So not that I'm surprised. It's pretty early in the season. It's in July, so it's unfortunately it has been canceled, but it's for the greater good, and it'll come back stronger next year. And next year I'll have that many more events to go to. All right, next question. Christopher says, main two questions are, how are you guys doing? How are your projects going? Well, we already talked about that, so thank you for the question, Christopher, but listen to the first half of the podcast. So we took care of you. Next question. Frank Eck, what's the plan for Mitsubishi off-roading? Brad will have to find an open passenger seat for now, won't he? What is the deal with Brad's Raider? What is the deal with Brad's Raider? I would let Andrew answer that question, but he'll just throw it in the junkyard.
Yeah, I will.
Yeah.
If you leave it to me, I'll throw it in the trash.
The deal is the vehicle is still sitting in New England.
Especially since you live in a place that just has a bunch of rust-free running ones. So,
but the thing is, that truck is not rusty.
it's rusty compared to what you can just get
Yeah,
there.
but I
for
also
the price of shipping that one.
no, actually, that's not true. Decent short wheelbases have gone up a bit in the past couple of years, so they're not exactly forgetting for a good one.
So the
Yes,
price of making it run and the price of shipping it, you can have a running and driving one.
possibly. But the problem I have with it, and the main reason I'm having an issue with it, is while the vehicle is not terribly rusty, it's a serviceable vehicle. It's not worth anything with a bad engine, so it's not worth much to sell it. It has the factory accessory flares and the factory accessory push bar and the roof rack setup, and it has the clutch that we put in it. And I think, did we put a clutch in that car? I think we did, right?
I don't know.
I don't know. I think it does. It has the fog lights on it. It has the all new braking system, all new lines, all new everything, and it's just all the stuff that's already done to it would cost me to do on a new one out here. So that's why I can't really. I'm having this like existential crisis over what to do, and I just kind of tabled it, and I'm trying to work on getting rid of other things that are sitting in the way in Massachusetts at the moment. So that's kind of been backburnered. When the $1,200 stimulus checks were coming, I had said I'm going to use that money to get the Raider out here so I can have an off-road vehicle out here. But then I didn't because I didn't. We used the money towards buying a house instead, which I guess at the end of the day is a better plan than transporting a crappy old Dodge Raider across the country. So I don't know what the plan is. The plan is there's no plan. The plan is I need to get rid of other things first, finish other things first, and the Raider is just kind of on the back burner. As far as off-roading plans, I've been off-roading out here in the passenger seat of vehicles. It's not as fun, but I'll take it in a pinch. What's your off-roading plans, Andrew? I know you've done a few upgrades to your truck.
I don't know what we're gonna do. There's maybe, depending on how Maine is with letting outside people in, we might do a small group trip the weekend instead of NEFR, but we'll see. That's up in the air. And then I don't know. I'll see what our buddy Eric is doing. Maybe he'll have a ride at some point. And I'll take her along with that, but no real other plans, unfortunately.
Yeah, again, it's kind of a weird year, and things are just kind of falling by the wayside a little bit.
I know Eric had continued his trend of always playing an event when I'm not around.
Yeah.
The last potential one was actually on our due date for the baby. So I was like, well, I can't go to that.
Yeah.
Um,
You can get away
so
with a lot of things. Missing that is not one of them.
yeah. Um, and then I think it ended up getting canceled anyways because of the COVID.
Yeah. So yeah, no real plans. I do promise though, Frank, if I ever make it to Florida again, which won't be anytime soon, but when I do make it to Florida again, I will look you up and we'll go wheeling together out there somewhere. So do the Florida style wheeling, playing in the mud. But I'm down. Last question on Facebook, I think, is what are your from Hans Henrik Peterson? What are your thoughts on turbocharging older cars? Blow through carburetors or upgrade to DIY injection? This is another one that I could let Andrew answer, and his answer is going to be throw it in the junkyard when it comes to blow through carbs.
I would upgrade a DIY injection. I mean,
Yeah,
why not?
I can't talk personal experience, but I do have a friend who has a Sapporo like mine, which is the 4G 54 carbureted 2.6 liter. And he bought one of those off the shelf Holley Sniper EFI setups. It's not designed for the car, but it's designed to be kind of universal. It's all about whatever kind of system of mounting it to the engine you can have. You need an intake that takes the 4-barrel style carburetor. So he adapted, I think it was a Toyota kit. He'll probably correct me if I'm wrong. His name's Darren. I think it was a Toyota kit for a 4-barrel carburetor. I'm not sure on which Toyota engine.
Version.
I don't know. Is there a 2-barrel version available?
I don't know. You'd think they'd have one, a basic one, just to do a basic version on a 2-barrel American car.
I'm not sure because I think that most American cars, the difference between a 2-barrel and a 4-barrel is an intake manifold, and it's like $12.95 on Summit Racing.
Yeah,
so true. I think that's kind of the problem there. I think it's a 4-barrel setup on his car, but he also lives in Alaska, so I'm sure parts availability is not the best. But he converted it to run by welding the manifold together with a hodgepodge of other parts to run the 2.6 liter G54B engine with that Holley Sniper EFI, and then he used a Starion Conquest exhaust manifold and turbo to run a turbo through the EFI. So at first glance, you look at it and you think it's a blow-through carb turbo setup, which is obviously a tuning nightmare and a reliability nightmare, but it's not. It's EFI that looks like a carburetor that is turbocharged. So
yeah, it's a blow-through throttle body, basically.
Yeah, at that point. And he has videos of the car running, and the problem with the Sapporo, as I've probably talked about before, is that it's quite slow. It's a very, once it gets moving, it's a fun car to drive, but getting it moving is not fun. And this takes care of all of those problems. He hasn't done anything to the car that's not reversible, and it looks almost factory. So I think it's a neat idea. I'm not going to do it to my Sapporo, but I have certainly thought about other vehicles in the fleet to make that happen with. So
I think there's more support for DIY injection, especially now.
Yeah, there certainly is.
Trying to do a blow-through carburetor setup. And even though it seems like it's more complicated, there's so many new standalones that make it not complicated.
Well, these Holley kits are an all-in-one box. So you're talking $800 to $1,200 depending on the kit, and it comes with the ECU to run it as well, and the control box and everything for it, and it self-learns. And to make the car drivable, usable, reliable, you don't even need like a dyno tuning session. So for less than $1,500, you wind up with a car that is transformed into a 21st century vehicle versus something that's antiquated. And while I like my carbureted cars, I also appreciate the technology in a fuel injected car, especially when driving places out here where you could be at 1,000 foot of elevation and 2 hours later be at 9,000 foot of elevation. And a fuel injected car is going to correct for that and run properly no matter where you are. So these systems are really neat. And when you think about it, if you're upgrading a carburetor in your carbureted car to do a proper upgraded carburetor, you're going to spend $400 or $500, and then you're going to need to tune it, and you're going to need to fill it with jets, and you're going to need to be adjusting it all the time. Whereas you spend double that, but there's no tuning involved, and the car just runs.
Well, even if you went with something like a Mega Squirt, there's enough people that are into it, there's enough knowledge about it that somebody can help you at least get a base tune that will start the car.
Yep.
And let it run. So,
but that's why I'm talking about the self-learning capabilities of like these Holley systems or the FI Tech systems, because you don't need to even have that. You just need to know how to bolt some parts on, essentially.
Maybe the trickiest part is welding in a bung for the O2 sensor.
Yeah, maybe, or whatever wiring you have to do, or the throttle control. But overall, as far as a DIY project goes, and these things are like out of the box ready. I mean, I've seen YouTube videos of people going and installing them in the parking lot of the store they bought it at and driving home. So it's not, that's obviously not realistic for everybody, but that's how simple it can be, is what I'm trying to say. So it's really neat to think about. The investment of $800 to $1,200 is not a whole heck of a lot when you're talking about most vintage cars. You get a guy with a 65 Mustang, he's got 25 grand into it, and he just swaps over to one of these EFI kits. It's a nothing investment on 25 grand. It becomes a bit more of an issue when I'm talking about putting one in a Dodge Colt, but it's all the car I chose, So I want to experiment with one. I'm not quite sure what car is going to get it or what the plan's going to be, but eventually I will run a car that has a carbureted converted to fuel injection with one of these standalone kits. So.
Probably your Toyota. Hint, hint.
No, probably not the Toyota. But there's an unspoken of project car that hasn't been mentioned on air out here that actually belongs to Naomi. That may wind up with one of these setups on it. So we'll discuss that car later.
All right, let's go to Instagram.
Okay,
and we've got Dave LC2. He asks, what is the worst rebadged car you have ever seen? I quite possibly have seen the worst yesterday. It was a newer V6 Challenger, complete with stock V6 wheels, with a huge SRT sticker on the rear quarter panel, 3/4 scale sized Hellcat emblems placed too high on the fender, a front toe strap, and to top it off, yellow banana front splitter guards stuffed onto a V6 straight front air dam.
I do like the 3/4 scale Hellcat logos in the fender because he bought them from Wish. He bought them from Wish and he thought they'd be perfect, but they weren't. The worst one I've ever seen. We talk about a rebadge or like a total fake here, because we're talking kit cars or just badge emblems.
I think we're talking about like a faked badge car, right?
Okay. I can't think of any on the top of my head. I mean, we all see on a daily basis almost M-badged BMWs that didn't come from the factory with M badges, or Infiniti G35s with Skyline badges where they're not.
Well, they were a Skyline in Japan.
Of course. Yeah, they were a 350 GT or whatever they called them.
Yeah, I mean, that'd be no different than running Holden badges on your Caprice.
Yeah, I guess not. Maybe it's not bad. I'm just thinking of cars that I've seen that are rebadged.
I can definitely think of the last generation Lancer, like a base model Lancer with a bunch of stuff glued to it to try to make it look like an Evo is probably
true.
The most common thing I've seen.
One of the things that always cracks me up on that same vein is a regular WRX or regular Impreza with the big STI trunk spoiler, because it always has the big STI trunk spoiler and then these like 16 by 6 inch wheels, and it just looks proportionally wrong. It just looks like that. It just doesn't look right at all. So that's definitely a problem too. I can't think of any as egregious as the one that Dave described. That sounds pretty bad. Actually, I think he put a picture of it on his Instagram page. It's pretty gross. I do have some pictures to share that I keep forgetting to share that I took last week, going on the full kit car realm. It's a Rolls-Royce Phantom kit car based on like a 96 Lincoln Continental. and it's one of the favorite things I've seen in a long time. It's appropriately parked in front of a pawn shop, and it fits right in right there. It's a pawn shop Rolls Royce. It's perfect, and it's pretty terrible. And I'll have to share those pictures now that I've mentioned it because it's a good one. It does say on it 2000. The ad says 2005 Rolls Royce / 1996 Lincoln Town Car. And then it proceeds to describe the fact that it has low miles and lists the miles at 160,000 miles. So, I mean, I guess that's low if you do an average of 12,000 a year since 96, but it's not low. So, I'll have to put pictures of that one up. That's my most recent one that I've seen that's that bad, but that's not a rebadge job. That's just a entirely changed car job. So, that's all I can think of. Next question, Andrew. What do you got?
Mike Samcan. If you were to build a rallycross car today with the intention of winning a championship, what would you build?
1995 Mirage.
I would actually, not surprising, an old Colt would be kind of fun.
Well, I think that if you want to do well, you need to pick a class that's underrepresented and doesn't have everybody in it. So you're talking stock rear, I think would be the place to go.
Yeah, I think it kind of loaded up in the last couple of years, but
did it?
It would still be fun.
Because we always did fairly well in stock front, but a lot of that wasn't due to the fact that we were good drivers. It was due to the fact that there weren't that many people competing.
I mean, I would usually win by quite a bit, depending.
Well, I'm just trying to be humble.
Me and
Andrew,
other,
I'm trying.
Ryan.
I'm trying to be humble, Andrew. Okay.
I'm not gonna be humble. Me and Ryan were pretty fast, and him and I would always trade back and forth for a while.
Okay, in which you did it in a 1995 Mitsubishi Mirage. So my first answer stands.
A Mark III Golf. So
yeah, I continuously have a search on Craigslist for that same Mirage to replace it. Not because of anything other than nostalgia, pretty much, but it was way more fun than it should have been. It was definitely a car that shouldn't have existed in the way it existed. So I enjoyed it, and I'd like to replicate that experience again. On the cheap, of course.
All right. Next question. Alex Stadel. Would a TSD format like POR, which is press on regardless rally that was in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, it was big in the 60s. So he's saying, would a TSD format like POR in the 60s find popularity again? Parentheses, long, difficult, high DNF rate. So WCR is... So Winter Challenge Rally is kind of a condensed version of a 60s style TSD that's done in one night. And it is long, difficult, and there's a lot of people that don't finish it. So I think if you could find people to organize something like this, because that's the difficulty in this, is organizing an event.
The planning, the route planning and the organizing and the insurance and all that stuff is hard.
People would do it.
100%.
Absolutely. Because people like Type 2 fun, which is where it feels miserable while you're doing it, but afterwards it feels awesome and you have really good stories to tell. So, I think it would, if you could find people to organize it, maybe you don't really need to have a year cut off because it doesn't matter. You can do Winter Challenge Rally in a brand new vehicle and you won't finish.
Right.
Or you do it in a super old vehicle and you'll finish. So it doesn't really matter. It's like all comes down to just like how you drove it, how you paid attention to navigating. I mean, that's what really, like, it's Winter Challenge Rally is, the first part of it, they'll do tulips, which are pretty easy to follow. And then, of course, as you're getting tighter, the night's getting longer. Suddenly you're doing, I think it went to written directions. And then at some point in this past year, there's always been a map section, but this past year, the map section just had compass directions.
Oh.
So you're given the map, but then the instruction was like, turn north and follow the route. And you're like, okay. So that was pretty tricky. And when it's 1:30 in the morning and you're trying to concentrate, yeah, that's when it's like really hard. So I think people would be into it.
I think you'll be into it. I'm into it enough that I damn near flew out there to participate in it this year. So I enjoy it a lot.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting thing. Yeah, I don't know. It just like then when you do other TSTs, you're like, this doesn't seem hard. Even though you're not like we're not very good at finishing high or getting low scores, it's like the navigation part is not super hard, I
But
guess.
the
I
the
don't know.
finishing part is easy once you've mastered something like the Winter Challenge Rally. The finishing in the exact time and the exact miles and getting the lowest score is very difficult and something that we will never probably ever do because
Yeah.
let's face it, we lack the patience to do the math.
The people that can score incredibly low at Winter Challenge Rally, that's so impressive. I think there were guys that had less like a score of less than 20 this past year
Yeah.
over the whole night, which is incredible.
And you probably didn't have a single stage under 20.
Oh, we did. We had like one or two.
Oh,
We just
okay.
got lucky seat of the pants. But yeah, your overall score ends up being we were probably 600 to 800 or something.
Yeah, exactly. It's crazy. It's a lot of fun. Even if you lose, you still have fun.
Yeah.
So I've always enjoyed it. Even the year that you hated when we did the Raider and you complained about it being cold the whole time,
Yes.
I enjoyed it immensely.
All right.
Next question.
Huge Rob. Huge Rob. For someone with no bodywork experience, but a need to save money where they can and a willingness to do the work, what should they plan to learn to do themselves? And what should they plan to pay someone else to do for a good paint job in an older car? E30 BMW sedan specifically. Also, what kind of cost should they expect?
Well, this is a tough
This is
one.
all you.
It depends on what you're looking for good. Um, Learn to do the dent repair. Learn to sling some body filler. Sure, you already know how to take things apart, so learn to do that. The more prep work you can do yourself, the less money it's going to cost you in the end. If you're really willing to learn, paint the car yourself. You know, a good garage paint job isn't going to be much worse, if at all, than a cheap paint job at a body shop. There's a significant difference between a professional, expensive $10,000 plus paint job and a paint job in your garage. But the paint job in your garage and the $2,000 or $3,000 paint job isn't going to be much different. At the end of the day, you're going to be doing a lot of wet sanding and buffing both of those jobs. And if you've taken the entire car apart, bumpers, lights, grills, moldings, all of that stuff, there's not going to be a lot of prep work when putting it back together because you won't have edges to peel. You won't have overspray to get off of moldings and grills and lights. You're not going to get a decent paint job for less than a few $1,000s. So if you're willing to learn, I think that you could probably replicate that same finish on your own for probably half of that. At the end of the day, paint is expensive. Quality paint is expensive. Just painting the door on my Eclipse, which was done with aerosol cans, I was probably into it for $400 in materials, just doing the door and the rocker panels. Maybe a little less, maybe 300 by the time all the paints and clears and sandpapers and tapes and everything was accounted for. It's just there's no cheap way to paint a car and have it look half decent. But that being said, the most inexpensive way to do it is to get some patience and do it yourself. And I really encourage you, if you have a garage space, throw down some drop cloths, some plastic line on the walls, go full on like Dexter setting up a kill room in your garage to paint your car. And I think you'd be surprised with the results you can come up with. So I highly encourage it. And I know Rob doesn't live that far from me. I'd be more than willing to go over and lend a hand on setup or paint or whatever. So for the low charge, of course, of helping me set up and paint when I'm ready to do my own cars. So, but yeah, I think that's the best plan. I don't think you're going to see enough of a difference between paying somebody a few $1,000s to do it or trying to do it yourself. Um, there's two things that are really important. It's the prep and then the wet sanding and buffing and polishing afterwards. Everything in between is going to be pretty much the same whether you're doing it yourself or paying somebody a small amount of money to do it. Unless you want to go all out, you want to build a full-on show car, then by all means spend the 10 grand plus to get a real nice professional paint job. But that's where I stand with that right now. I don't see a difference. If you're willing to do the work, if you think the savings of $1,000 to $2,000 is worth your time, then do it yourself. I think that's the big thing right there is how much is it going to cost versus what's your time worth. So unprofessional professional advice.
All right. Down to Dirty Racing. I dislike the safari or rally inspired builds. Most examples are overdone or missing the point of competition cars they imagine they are copying. Usually end up as a car that's not really good for street anymore or for competition on dirt. What trends of car builds do you not understand besides stance, of course?
That is an unpopular opinion at the moment, but I tend to agree with him. I don't love all of the safari builds going on with cars.
I'm kind of over it.
So in the small use case where it works for you, I support it, but I don't think most people that have them need them.
I would say specifically the Lee Keen cars seem like they're very useful and well built.
But
I would exclude those, but there's a lot of people that are just building them out of anything. That seems kind of dumb.
So the Lee Keen cars, I will have my point on those right now.
Yeah.
They're great for somebody who lives where he lives and has access to dirt roads that are well prepped to go play on.
Right.
At the end of the day, if you don't have access to those kinds of roads, you've taken a car that's known for its handling and you've ruined the handling on pavement. And if you're not spending a lot of time playing on dirt, I don't understand the point of the car. If you're a place where you have an area to play on the dirt, like out here in the desert, it makes the use case is good. There's tons of pretty smooth or just washboarded out roads or dry riverbeds that you could blast down in a lifted car.
Oh, yeah. Hence a Baja Beetle. There's a reason why
yeah,
people
exactly.
like them.
So something like that, I'm into. Baja Beetles, I'm into. Because we have the area here. I can't imagine a use case for somebody in, say, where we're from, Andrew, in New England, where a Baja car does anything it's supposed to. You couldn't take a Porsche with 5 or 6 inches of lift and take it down most of the roads that we've driven even our Monteros and Raiders down. You couldn't take them mountain climbing. You couldn't take them on rocky passes. It needs to be a specific area for it. And I think the majority of people are building them because they saw them on Instagram and they look cool. Or they're gambler cars, which I'm also not supporting.
Gambler car is totally different. It's just that I can get behind Gambler because it just taking a cheap car, you're doing whatever to it, you're having fun, they're cleaning up the woods, they're being decent people. I have no problem with that.
Yeah, it just seems gimmicky and awful to me.
Nah, it doesn't to me at all. It seems pretty cool. But the death cart thing, that is completely stupid.
Yeah, and it's been proven the name is valid.
It just doesn't make any sense to me why you would take a car that is useful as a car and just take the body away and just put metal pipes. Like, yeah, I guess you're trying to make it lighter, but it definitely doesn't make it better. It's not going to be engineered like an Ariel Atom. So, like, why are you doing that?
Well, they called it death carts, and that kid that really started the trend with his Hondas down there in Georgia was killed driving his, so that name fits. I think the one case where I see that maybe a little bit less ridiculous is, and it's the only car you could do it to, is a car that has like a monocoque like a Corvette. And I've seen a few of them built from Corvettes, but they still have all the structural integrity of a Corvette. because the doors and roof on those cars are not structural.
I guess. And then you're into a weird Baja Corvette, which, okay.
Right. Again, you need to
Or like a
have
lifted Miata, like, okay. I
you
mean,
need to have the
sure,
right place to use it. If you don't have the right place to use it, it's a waste of time, money, and effort.
it looks cool for a second, but then I think you would get bored of it pretty quick
Yeah, I'm
because
not building one, that's for sure.
it's suddenly like you've taken a car that's useful and made it not useful.
Yep.
Sort of like an El Camino.
No, stop it. It's a very useful car. Listen, if I had an El Camino, I would not have dropped the grill off the back of my car transporting it home.
You could have just done that with a pickup truck.
I don't have a
You had
pickup truck. We rephrase that. I don't have a running pickup truck. So there.
If your pickup truck ran, you could have put the grill in that.
My pickup truck would run if it wasn't for this damn coronavirus. Anyway, El Caminos are useful. Lifted Miatas, lifted Corvettes, lifted Porsches are generally not. Again, it's a trend. I think it will die. And I think you'll have a bunch of people with Porsches with cut open fenders that are regretting their decisions. Much like the RWB Porsche guys, they're going to regret their decisions in the future when all of a sudden, rubber bumper, impact bumper, 80s Porsches are worth money again. And they've cut theirs all into a million pieces to bolt on the current trend of wide over fenders and modern wheels. So
maybe
I almost guarantee it.
But. All right. Downey Dirty Racing with the last question. I'll soon be selling my WRX, the dream car since middle school. What are some instances where your dream car has changed due to life or because it's no longer the thing you want to drive?
I don't know.
Are you still there?
My dream cars have always been kind of garbage cars, and they've always kind of stayed the same.
I mean, we both had Evos that we got rid of. I got rid of my STI.
Yeah, those are due to us being young and dumb and not having enough money to do what we wanted to do. I think it's more it though.
Yeah, I could have kept my STI. I should have done that instead of getting an Evo, but I wanted to own an Evo, so I did, and then I didn't after a while. So
yeah,
it was more like wrong economy, right car.
Yeah. So I sold my Evo. I traded my Evo in because it was expensive, and my brain told me that it was time to be responsible and get rid of an expensive car. And I traded it in with 34,000 miles on it. And I think I got 19 grand for it, which at the time was market. And I said to myself, well, when these drop down and they're like, the all-wheel drive Eclipses in 20 years and they're $5,000, I'll buy another one. Well, it's been almost that 20 years. And if I still had a 34,000 mile Evo, I'd have like a $60,000 car. So yeah. I don't anymore. And 100,000 mile plus Evos are that same 19 grand that I traded mine in for. So I've had that weird place in my brain where I can't imagine spending, 18, 19 grand on a 130,000 mile Evo when I already had the experience with an almost brand new Evo.
Right.
So I do regret getting rid of it, but I also don't regret getting rid of it because at the time it was the choice I had to make. And I mean, it's taken me down the path that we're at today, and who knows what would have changed. So,
yeah, so that's kind of a bummer. I mean, it's a WRX. I don't know. I've driven quite a few of them. Yeah, it's your favorite car, but I mean, I guess if you get something else I would try to get something else that's still fun to drive. Like, that's how you don't regret getting rid of stuff, right? So, like, having a quote-unquote family car with, like, the Golf All-Track, it's a manual, so it's fun to drive. So it's not like I regret this. Like, yeah, it's not as fast as my WRX, but it has manual transmission, so it's not boring.
And it's innumerably more practical.
Yeah, and then even Stephanie's Crosstrek, it's not the fastest thing in the world, but at least having manual transmission, it's enjoyable to drive. Yeah. So it doesn't make you feel like you've totally lost everything and you're no longer like a cool car person.
Yeah, I mean,
So
I bought the station wagon first, and I bought a manual as well for the same reason. It's a diesel manual. It's a very slow car. It's not fast by any means, and it's still enjoyable to drive because of that manual. So there's options out there.
yeah.
I don't know what he's planning
Oh
on doing, but
no, I don't either. Um, but
I do have one more
I
question.
do want. You have one more question?
Yep,
Okay.
on my page, Chris Dorado asked a question. Kind of goes
Okay.
along with that last one. Have you ever thought about selling a long owned vehicle knowing
Oh.
that you would regret it?
I had when I was younger. I thought about selling my Talon. I had a couple of people tell me not to, and I'm glad I didn't because
Raise his
the
hand.
car is worth more in sentimental value than probably anything I'd ever get for it.
Yep.
So that car and the Galant will never get sold. Kind of everything else can probably get sold. I'm not super attached to the Montero, but those are probably the two permanent cars.
I've thought about it a few times. And my father has always said this, that we don't buy cars, we adopt them. And that's kind of true for most of my cars. Most of my cars aren't worth a lot of money. I've always had a taste in stuff that nobody else wants. I do have that Camaro, and I've had the Camaro since I was a kid. Since before it was a collector car, since before I had a driver's license, it was bought by my father. And I've thought now and again, this car is worth a good chunk of change. I could sell it and buy something that's not worth nearly as much, and put the rest of the money towards property or whatever. And I've never pulled the trigger on it for that same reason, as I can't quite think about what I would do without it. And it's not rational. I haven't driven the car probably going on a year. It was probably sometime in, or more than a year. It was probably April of last year, last time the car was on the road. And I don't even think about driving it all the time. But I also know that it's there, and it doesn't cost me anything staying there. So I can't bring myself to also even think about getting rid of it. And then I think, what would I get if I got rid of it? Would I be able to replicate the experience and the history I have with that car or not? There was a time where I could have sold it and bought myself, probably in the early 2000s, I could have sold it and bought myself an early air-cooled Porsche, which I thought about, and then didn't. So financially, that would have made sense at the time, but emotionally, I couldn't do it. And another friend of ours was like, "Well, you have a bunch of small cars. Do you really want to get rid of your big American muscle car and buy another small car?" So I took his advice and I didn't do it. And maybe I'm better for it, maybe I'm not. But the car will always be there, and I can't bring myself to sell it. So I thought about it, of course. Will I do it? Probably not.
Right. All right. So we were talking earlier. I want to go back to that rally in the East.
Okay.
We're talking about the Lancia, the 037. Funny thing is, when I was there, I was like, I think that's an 037, but I'm not sure. And it's weird because the car was red, and for some reason in my brain, I only recognize 037s in like martini livery.
Okay.
Toe tip livery.
Yep.
And like on box art of model kits, they seem so much bigger.
Oh, they're tiny little cars.
They're minuscule. Like it's kind of frightening how small they are.
Oh, it probably dwarfed the Alpine A110.
Barely dwarfed it.
Oh.
Definitely wider. Like the Alpine is very long and narrow, and the 037 is very wide and probably the same length. But it reminded me of it's like almost F40 size, but maybe it's probably shorter. It probably has a shorter wheelbase. It's kind of a crazy car. Like I didn't realize that like it's all tube frame underneath, and like I think it's fiberglass. It definitely had like sand windows. It was kind of a bananas car to see on the street. You know, I
Yeah,
didn't realize how
I'm
crazy it
not
was.
sure. I know like the rear like engine cover is probably fiberglass. I don't know what the main body
Yeah,
construction is.
yeah.
Oh,
It's
hold on, I
a
just pulled it up.
wow,
It's polyester resin with glass fiber and flame retardant. That's what it's made out of.
weird.
Yeah.
I don't even know what a street car, the value of a street car is going for right now, because I don't think I've ever actually seen one before.
It's a 2,100 pound car. It's way heavier than I thought it would be. But no, that's kind of, I expected to see like fiberglass or carbon fiber or aluminum, but no, polyester resin with glass fiber and flame retardant.
Mm-hmm. It's
How
funny.
Italian?
Yeah, to me, I don't know why. Probably because it's the wedge shape. It feels more 70s, even though Stratos is actually like truly 70s.
Yeah, well these were built from 82 to 84, so they're definitely 80s.
But you can definitely see that lineage from the Stratos to, I think, the Beta Monte Carlo,
Yep.
the 037. It's kind
Well,
of
the
wild. And then,
037 was based on the Beta. It's had some parts I think did the Monte Carlo.
yeah, and
Um,
then even looking at the Delta parked next to the Galant, you can see, and I've read this in the Group A book, the McLean Group A book that I got recently. The Gallants really had a hard time against the Lancias because the Lancias were pretty much already established,
mhm.
and the Gallant was a newcomer. And you can see even if my car had JDM bumpers, how much shorter the Delta is
Well, that's why
and smaller.
the Galant was almost like a stopgap in between the rear wheel drive Lancers and the Lancer Evolution. They were like, "We need a
Yeah, they
car
just
right
didn't.
now. We don't have a car, so what are we going to use?" And they used the Galant.
Yeah, it was. It just wasn't. It was just slightly too big to be really competitive. It
Yeah.
got lucky a couple times. And then the Lancer is. It's not even that much smaller. I don't think an Evo one's too much smaller than a Galant VR4. I've never seen one parked next to each other, but I think they're only slightly smaller.
Well, think about the
But
Mirage. The Mirage is a
it's
two-door
true.
Lancer. It's a lot smaller than the Galant.
Oh yeah, okay,
Yeah.
yeah,
So I'm going to make a correction here on the 037.
yep.
The street car was Kevlar reinforced by fiberglass.
Hmm.
The race car was the polyester resin reinforced with glass fiber and flame retardant. So that's
Weird.
probably not. It's not a super fast car in street trim. In street trim, it's 2,500 pounds
Yeah.
and it's 205 horse, which is not like nothing to sneeze at, but it's not like supercar numbers by any means.
No, but it sure as hell makes the right sounds. I can tell you that.
Oh, for sure.
And
It definitely has the emotion of that car is off the charts.
yeah,
Whereas the rally
and
car
then
is 2,100 pounds with 280 horsepower. And then on
mhm.
the Evolution models were 325 horsepower. Yeah.
They were the last competitive rear-wheel drive rally car
Yeah,
too.
probably. Yep.
No, they were.
That's super cool.
They were the only thing that could hang on certain rallies with the Audis.
What's crazy is you sit here and you read the specs on this 037 street car and you think about it being like the hypercar of its time. And you say, yeah, 2,500 pounds, 205 horse, supercharged with a peak of 0.9 bar. So that's like 13.5 PSI.
Yep.
4-cylinder, right?
Yep.
Yeah, 4-cylinder, quad cam, 5-speed, Pirelli 205 55 16s. Like
Yeah.
those numbers just, if I told you, oh yeah, he has a almost, over 2,500 pound car with 200 horse and 205 55s, what am I talking about? Your brain would be like, I don't know, an Accord. It's just
Right.
the numbers just seem so far removed from what we're looking at.
Oh no, the thing would get smoked by a Camry today, but it doesn't
It doesn't matter.
because
I'm not even suggesting that it matters, and nobody is more the proponent of the old vintage car over the modern car, and numbers don't mean squat. It's funny sitting here reading those specs and putting in my brain what those specs would mean today. So
No, it's just like a crazy, crazy cool car. And then I was talking to the gentleman with the Alpine. He actually goes to the Lime Rock Historics. So that was the same car that we saw there when we went.
oh, okay.
I don't know if you remember parked there.
I
Yeah,
do remember seeing one. Yeah,
that is the car that we saw. As I was asking him.
I'm currently looking it up.
That is a very cool car because it's basically a Y frame chassis like a Lotus
Yeah,
with a fiberglass body wrapped over it and then an inline four in the back. And it's it's cool because when you go up to it, it's like an original Corvette. You can see all the imperfections in the fiberglass body.
yep,
And that's it's an original car. Right? Because when they get repainted, when people restore these Corvettes, they over restore them and they fill in all the fiberglass defects.
right.
And it's kind of takes away a little bit of the charm, I guess. I don't know.
So at 037, an 84 037 Stradale streetcar sold at Sotheby's in Monterey in August of 19. So that was last year. And it was just north of $500,000.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Whoa. Okay.
Yep.
That's okay. Yeah. So yeah, I had the
There's one currently for sale on Sotheby's online auction site, which they're doing right now because of the whole COVID thing. It's closing in 12 hours. It's currently sitting at $320,000, but the estimate is $420 to $520.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
All right. So yeah, I definitely on that rally had the least expensive car by
$500,000.
Wild.
Well, I mean,
But
even a Delta is what, 75 now for a non-Evo?
really?
Oh, they're up there.
Really?
Well, let's put it this way. Currently on that same Sotheby's auction online, there is a Delta Evo 2, so the top of the line.
Okay.
The one to have, and the estimate is 90 to 140.
What?
Yeah.
Whoa. See, like, all right, they're cool. They're very cool looking. They get cool box flares. I'd be interested to know if the driving experience is worth that much because I think an Evo 3, Lancer Evo 3, which is the competitive car to that of that time, I guess, right?
Yep.
Evo 1, Evo 2 would give you a very similar experience. Because, I mean, let's face it, they're Italian cars from the 80s.
Yep.
They're not luxury cars. The interiors aren't like, I mean, they're cool looking, but they're probably not that well put together because it's an Italian car. So I was kind of thinking, like, what's the, like how much better could this regular Delta be from my Galant?
I don't know.
Yeah. And they certainly weren't any faster than my car.
So the most recent one I can find real quickly without trying really hard for a Delta HF Evolution 1. So that's like the beginning of that's like the Galant competitor, I guess, because the earlier cars they didn't have box flares. So Evo 1 was the first car with box flares, right?
Yeah, I think some of they had box flare ish, but maybe they're not as wide.
Okay, so there's a Delta HF, and a Delta HF Integrale, right? And the Integrale was the flared car. So
okay, these are all HFs and HF Integrales.
So the cheapest I'm seeing is €40,000, which is about $60,000 right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So they're not cheap, cars. And the Evolution 1 Martini, which is the car you saw, correct?
There's 3 of them there, yeah.
Yeah, those are in the $120,000 to $150,000 range.
What?
So you were mixing it up with people who are above your pay grade, my friend.
I mean, a couple of them thought the Galant was really cool, and they were surprised how clean it was.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think that's more of uh, a byproduct of this country, right? So they were sold here because they had to produce at least 5,000 of them. So Mitsubishi was like, all right, let's throw 3,000 of them at the U.S. market. But
But then they sold like
nobody here,
100,000 of them in the rest of the world.
yeah, but nobody gave a shit about rally here.
Yeah.
So like maybe 20 of these cars became rally cars. I don't know. I don't know the exact number. I know there's a few in this country.
Mm-hmm.
There's a few that were factory raced, but it wasn't that big of a deal. Majority of them, once people realized that they were the same as an Eclipse Talon Laser, they went drag racing with them, just because
America.
that's what this country does.
Yep.
So, like, for whatever reason, they just don't have any presence here as a rally car, and they weren't that successful in World Rally like Lancia was. So they only won like 2 World Rally events, which is crazy. But really, the performance was not that much different. So
No, I think that for the sub $10,000, you can begin to a really nice Galant VR4. You're going to have 9/10 of the driving experience of a Lancia Delta. I think it's a better car. It's probably a faster car. It's probably the same kind of handling of a car. The only thing you're going to miss out on is the interactions with people going, "Whoa, a Lancia Delta," which is fine.
but the funny thing is, of these rare cars, I had the rarest one there because I had the only one.
Yeah, exactly. Or maybe that's because people just don't care. So you want a bargain of all the cars that you were driving around with this weekend.
Yeah,
You're going to want to buy a Alpine A110.
and it was certainly the prettiest car.
Yeah,
I think that's the prettiest rally car ever made.
those are 100 to 150. They're not quite as ridiculously priced.
No,
But
wow.
I mean, they're still way out of our price range, but they're not. Yeah, it's kind of a shame that we're completely out of this kind of a market of cars. We're never going to have that kind of. I'm never going to have the money to buy a $150,000 car, and even if I did, I don't know that I would. But that's also part of the reason that I'm into the cars that I'm into, and I'm really stoked on hopefully in the next calendar year picking up a Evo 1, 2, or 3 and having some of that same experience.
Yeah, before those get crazy. So
yep.
Actually, yeah, we'll have to check on that because there was one up for auction on Bring a Trailer. We're curious to see what that would go for. So we'll have to have an auction update on the next episode on that.
Sure. I think it's still currently going, isn't it?
I believe so. Well, anyways, getting a little long here. So you can follow us on Auto Off Topic Podcast on Facebook, Auto Off Topic on Instagram. You can follow me on Instagram, Race and Anger. Well, on the Instagram, I'll put some pictures up of the magazine, a couple more pictures of the rally. I took a ton of film photos, actually more than I took with my phone. I basically split between my film camera and my phone this time. I didn't even bother with my DSLR. Sometimes it's just easier to hold the film camera, shoot more with that, and then just use the phone. Believe it or not, depends on my mood. Brad, where can they find you?
On Instagram, TSISS350.
Cool. So, as always, keep cars analog and aim for the roses.